What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Out of the Shadows. This is another podcast-style episode with my friend Mike. Say hello to the people.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? How you guys doing?
So we're just going to kind of talk about, we've touched on this before in like pretty much every video with anyone I've done, but things that we're doing during quarantine, kind of the routines that we have in place, some of the challenges that we've faced in doing them, things like that. And I can say for me, oddly enough, the more the time has gone on, the more difficult it's become for me to kind of retain my routine. I've been doing it, but I definitely have more days where I'm kind of having to force myself and be like, all right, well, I know you don't feel like doing this, but do it anyway. Would you say you're having a similar experience, or is it the opposite for you? Like, what's it like for you, Mike?
I was gonna say it's kind of been the opposite for me. Um, Before all this happened and I was working regularly, I kind of had made a routine for myself, and I was following through with it pretty well. And then when we got pretty much laid off because of the coronavirus and all that, it was kind of like a free for all after that for myself. I really didn't. I didn't really carry on the routine. I kind of just said, hey, you know what? Here's all this open time, and I kind of let it go in a way. Um, but as time has gone on, I've been kind of just thinking to myself, things could go back. Not that I think things will go back soon to normal, but just hypothetically, if work calls back tomorrow, you're back to work, and all this time that you had to yourself, all this free time, it could be, that you could have been using towards whatever goals you have or whatever. It started clicking with me, and I know that there's still time left, and I've been getting on it lately. I've been kind of just keeping myself accountable with that and making a little bit of structure here.
Yeah, see, I think the thing of it is, and it's probably, I mean, I shouldn't say it's probably like that for most people, your situation over mine. But for me, I think it's more the issue of, I know that if I don't have structure, if I don't have a routine, if I let myself just do whatever, like, I'm likely going to become depressed. So I think for
Mm-hmm.
me, there was more of a sense of urgency of like, all right, I know what I need to put into place. Otherwise, this is going to be bad for me. So,
Right.
and I also think for myself that the reason why it's a little bit more difficult as time has gone on is obviously we're not able to socialize in person. So I do my best
Right.
to talk to people, like you and I talk pretty often, and I try to keep those things in place, but it's outside of your control too. I mean, sometimes people are busy doing whatever it might be. So I think like the more I've had to deal with the isolation, I think that gets to me a little bit. Like, yeah, of course, I have things to where I can manage it, but I feel like the longer it goes on, the harder that is for me.
That makes sense. I mean, it's I don't think this isolation is truly helping anybody as far as, um um if they're, missing other people, that you have in your life. Yeah, I mean, that could be tough. And obviously it's the hand we're dealt right now, you know. Um I guess that's where this is a good opportunity just to really focus on ourselves. But yeah, I mean, we all need some type of social interaction in a way, and staying in touch with each other is big. But not seeing people, not being able to, not being able to hug my own mom is crazy. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I'm the person that if I see her, if I'm around her, I hug her a lot, and it's just it's crazy. All those little things that you can't even do right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like I was saying to somebody else earlier. I mean, like if you think about it enough, it feels like something out of a movie or a Stephen King novel. Like when I go for walks, and it's understandable, but like I've seen people, if they see me from a distance, they'll cross the street, or I've done that, or like, you see people with masks, which is just the norm now. And, especially initially there was so much less activity. I'm just like, dude, what? This is insane. Like I would just do my best to kind of, not that I wanted to ignore it, but I was like, just accept that this is what's going on right now, and like, don't freak yourself out too much.
That's one of the biggest things. Not freaking out. I mean, it's easy to do that in this time, but what we have to just remind ourselves that pretty much throughout, our I mean, at least mine and your lives, you know what I mean? There's been a lot of moments in history that have disrupted life and all that, but this is definitely unique. And I really think that at some point we're going to go back to what was normal. Maybe it'll be a little bit different, but I think I think you have to look ahead to brighter times. Um, keep a little positive outlook on it and not freak out. But what you were saying about Stephen King, I seen some type of meme that said 2020 directed by Quentin Tarantino, written by Stephen King,
Yeah.
and it's totally accurate, very accurate. Um, I'm looking forward to being able to make that movie.
No, and one thing I've done recently that's been helpful is, I mean, kind of, we've discussed this before. I kind of have a framework of like, all right, these are the things I want to accomplish or do. Like the givens for me are Wim Hof breathing. I always do that. And then 3 to 4 times a week, I shoot for 4. Usually 2 days of yoga and then 2 days of some kind of exercise. Typically, core strengthening is what I tend to incorporate now. I've added on the walks, things like that. But another thing for me that I think is just kind of a great, all right, this is a good option to have, is to try to either watch or read something having to do with personal growth, like whatever avenue or area it might be. And the other day I had seen, so this guy, his name is Vishen Lakhiani, and he owns a company called Mind Valley. Essentially, they run classes is a big part of it that are personal growth oriented. I've read his book. The book that he has out currently, he has another one coming out. It's called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. Great book. I highly recommend it to anyone out there. And he had spoken about, he actually, in that book, one of the first things he started doing when he became the owner of his own business is he was teaching meditation. He didn't explain exactly what type it was. He didn't explain anything about the company that he was associated with. But now apparently they worked out a business deal, so he started discussing what it was. It's called the Silva Ultramind. And
Okay.
he's offering a class right now to where you can learn these methods. And so there was an 1.5-hour video that he posted. It was free. And it's essentially just kind of going over what this meditation method entails and what you'd be doing. And it was awesome and it was great. And, even for those 90 minutes, even though it wasn't very in depth, it was a really good way to occupy my time. Now, I wish I could have. The class is $300, which right now, yeah, I have it, but I don't necessarily want to spend it.
Yeah, right.
So, but what I did do, I found on Audible, I have an Audible subscription. With your Audible subscription, there's a book on this Silva Ultramind method. I've gotten through about half of it. The basics of it, and I think the most interesting part, is that it teaches you how to get into different states of mind. Essentially, you're changing what wavelength your brain waves are on. You start off, I guess our default is we're in beta brain waves. The
Okay.
next level is alpha, and then under that is delta. And then if you go further, I know there's theta, there's gamma. And in learning it, I've definitely gone. They take you to the level of learning how to get into the alpha brain waves. I'm pretty sure eventually they're going to touch on delta, which is where I want to go. Being that I've done the Wim Hof and that has a meditative experience, especially, I mean, when you're breathing,
Right.
you're changing your state essentially. And I think it's
Right.
one of the quickest ways you can do it. But having had that experience, like the first couple of exercises, they say like, oh, you're probably gonna have to do this a while before you notice a difference. But I noticed it pretty much immediately. The point of this long discussion is I think that finding things like that and finding some kind of personal growth stuff, especially something like this, you can really delve into.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only great for one, you're occupying your mind, you're not thinking about, oh, the virus and when is this going to end, but you're
Right.
learning something beneficial to you. So
So, are you a fan of Audible? Because had I had it and I downloaded some books. I haven't listened to them yet because I'm still reading an actual book right now, which I have many of those I have to read. So I haven't really given Audible a shot. But are you a fan of it? Because I've heard some good things.
we'll see. For me, the biggest thing, and Tulio and I had talked about this, he does it a lot. And I was like, that's a great point. He was always telling me how basically like whenever he's going to or from work, well, before all this, obviously, he was listening to podcasts, then he would listen to books. And I was like, oh, it's a great idea. So I had done it a couple times I was listening to just a podcast with Wim Hof because I love Wim's work. And then I was like, you know what, I'll give Audible a shot. I did the free month trial and I've just driving to and from work and like, just doing general errands. I mean, obviously you're doing more driving prior to all this, but
Yeah.
while that was happening, I got through like 3-4 books, and
Oh, that's good.
it's a good way to occupy that time. Like, you can totally listen to a book while you're driving and absorb the content. So that's why I like it. I will admit, I prefer, if I'm at home like this, I'd rather read.
Right.
With this book that I downloaded, the Silva Ultramind thing, I don't know that there would have been a free version on Kindle. I figured that with my Audible subscription was the most likely avenue. It's easier with something like that because also it's teaching you something. And like, if there were a paperback version of what I'm listening to, I don't think there is, because actually you can tell this was originally like tapes and CDs. Like they'll say like, oh, flip to side B, which doesn't exist right now. So
Right.
that's more conducive to be listening to while you're at home, because it's a program like that. But if I'm at home, I prefer regular reading. If I'm, able to drive and get around, I think Audible's a great thing.
Now, can you read the book? Is it only audio, or is there like a Kindle version too that you can read? Does that come with the subscription or no?
It doesn't come with a Kindle version. I know on Kindle, some Kindle books come with the option to listen to them as audio. I don't know if there's a separate
I think
subscription,
I'd
but I
like
know like
that.
it's not like typical to, like, you can't just go on Audible and be like, oh, I downloaded this book and I can also read it. It's only the
Right.
audio version.
I would like to have. I want to have all three. I want to have the book. I want to have the audio,
And
and
the
then I don't
Kindle.
know, and maybe not the Kindle. I want the book. That's what I want. I want an audio CD with the book. That's what I want. That's
Yeah.
that basically exists already.
Well, I mean, it's definitely, I will admit, like I had to get used to Kindle. Like it's nice in the option that like if like you hear about a book and you want it, you can just get it like that.
Yeah.
I will admit it's nice to have a physical book. I do prefer that, but
Yeah. Well, like what I've been doing too, like this book I'm reading, I was into like chapter 5, and I'm like, you know what? I I want to start like I had a highlighter before, and I would like highlight through a book, and I couldn't find my highlighter, but I started making some notes, just to kind of take down interesting things. And that's one of the benefits I have in a book. I mean, but I wouldn't mind trying out that Audible. I mean, it's especially like I downloaded the David Goggins book, so I think that would be just really interesting because
he does.
he's just really, yeah.
I don't think he narrates the whole thing, but I think that
Oh, really?
no, yeah. Some people will narrate their own books, some won't. I know, but Tulio was saying that with the David Goggins book, there's like post chapter discussions, and that is David Goggins talking.
Oh, okay.
And I
Yeah, I
really
just want
want
to
to
hear.
go on,
Like I just want to read
hear
because
him like
the way he
saying all this
talks and
stuff.
everything. Yeah, stay hard, motherfucker.
Well, no, I
He's-
want to. What I want to hear in particular is, Tulio was telling me about how David Goggins talks about being inspired by Rocky. I was able to find a clip of him talking about it on Joe Rogan, but the way Tulio put it to me is he's like, dude, he's like, I don't, I know that like David Goggins isn't necessarily like your main go-to, but he's like, when this dude talks about Rocky, it sounds like you wrote
you're
the
talking
book.
about Rocky.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I got to
Yeah,
hear this now. So
you guys
I,
share
I, I
a
want to hear
similar
that.
passion for. You share a similar passion for Rocky.
Yeah. But like you were
So,
saying, in terms of, highlighting books and stuff like that, like, yeah, man, and that's awesome. I mean, really, I don't do that all the time, but like with I have a Bruce Lee book called Striking Thoughts, and it's all his philosophies, and honestly 90% is just life in general. Like there's only about 10% of that book that I would say is specific to martial arts, and
right.
really you could even take those and apply it to life. But that's a book where I've highlighted, and there's like a million little bookmarks that I haven't. Like there's got to be easily 20 bookmarks minimum in there, probably more. And I did that with Vishen Lakhiani's book. Also, I have the physical book, so I'd have to look at it. I read it about a year ago, but it's still by my desk, and it's got a billion bookmarks. I don't know if I actually highlighted stuff or I just bookmarked it. I probably highlighted it.
Well, that's what's awesome is when you read a book that's filled with so much content, so much good content, and you want to just kind of like, I guess, save those things, retain those things. Like I've read a book twice just so I could go back and retain some of that stuff and make notes and I'm, you want to understand what you're reading, you want to comprehend it all. So um, I think that's important. That's the plus side of the physical book. But I do want to try Audible. So
Yeah, no, like I said, I think to me it's most beneficial for when you're on the go. I know, and I don't know that you would do this either. I mean, I wouldn't. Some people will say that they'll listen to Audible books while they're working out. Like I prefer music when I'm working out, but I know some people enjoy that avenue.
yeah, I don't think I could do the book when working out.
I
I need
just I
aggression. I need
yeah, I was gonna say I need something to get me going. If I'm just listening to someone tell me how to better myself, I'm like,
well,
man, I'm done.
maybe Goggins. Maybe
Yeah, yeah.
Goggins would definitely motivate you. I mean, can't listen to like no philosophy book or something during a workout, but Goggins telling you to stay hard a bunch of times, that would be good.
No, no, but obviously we've gotten into an interesting and a beneficial area, like you say. Like right now, expanding the mind is great, and I think to me, like with anything, there was I can't remember who it was specifically, but there's a guy Tulio followed on Instagram, and he was talking about how especially when all this started, everyone talks about like, oh man, like we have all this time to ourselves, and I'm going to do so much. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And most of us haven't followed through with all of those huge aspirations. If you did say something to that effect, but the guy talked about how he has different categories of like personal development, shall we say, like relationships, business, fitness, and he actually has things written down and he has them in like these little bins, and he'll just take out one from each a day and try to achieve that. I would even go one step down from that, depending upon how much motivation you have, but I would just pick out one, or again, like I don't have anything physical, but sometimes I try to do it like, all right, well, today I'm going to focus on physical health, or today I'm going to focus on learning something or whatever.
Yeah.
And God, I was going to mention something. Oh, like you had brought up to me before, you follow that guy. Is it the Modern Stoic? Is that what it's called?
Daily Stoic.
The Daily
Daily
Stoic.
Stoic. Yeah, I think the guy's name is Ryan Holiday is what his name is.
Yeah, dude, and that was awesome. Like, I definitely want to look into that more. Like, I definitely didn't have the understanding of Stoicism that I thought that I did. But there's just so many things that you can, have a lot of practical application, and that's again, a great thing to be able to dive into something like that right now to really, like I said, it's not just a distraction. You're utilizing your time well.
Yeah, I find it really interesting too, and I mean I think his you subscribe to the website, they send you a daily email, and obviously they have a YouTube channel and all that, and he's been on with a lot of people. I mean Tim Ferriss, I think he was on the Breakfast Club. He's been on like a lot of interesting interviews and stuff. So I mean I think his website and all that, I'm a fan of it. I've definitely been like every day I checked it Daily Stoic because I don't know, I'm enthralled with it. I like it a lot, and especially it's a lot of Roman philosophy and Greek philosophy and all that stuff. So it's very interesting, and like you said, very applicable to these times. And when you think about it, when you can contrast then to now, we have so much more at our fingertips, and that they didn't, and they had to do what they did um, without all the stuff we have today. So.
Yeah, and I mean, like we're saying, there's so much practical application. Like the one thing in particular, or one of the things I can remember, was when they referenced how it was something to the effect of like, if you think about, can I handle the worst possible outcome, and being able to, have that and then be like, all right, yeah, I can. So, all right, I'm going to proceed. It's such a basic thing, but I've done that before. And I was like, dude, I didn't even know this was like part of, their curriculum, so to speak.
Yeah, there's a lot of it, even the physical fitness aspect too. Because he says like a lot of people would think of a philosopher as somebody just sitting on a stoop and being in deep thought and not really being the most physically fit person, but they're very dedicated. I mean, I guess according to whatever they know about them, they're very dedicated to physical fitness and being battle ready, quote unquote, because tribes and invading armies were pretty present thing, omnipresent back then. So we don't really have to deal with much of that now. But I mean, they just dealt with so much more in their time and passed on a lot of wisdom.
Yeah, and speaking of the mindset of war and such, so how about Tyson, man? I saw that video on Instagram of
Ooh,
him. I saw him work in the mitts, and at first, like, I really didn't think. I mean, like, I thought it was awesome, and I was like, man, like, this is one of the top 10 guys alive. I wouldn't want to get hit by, but
yeah, of course.
but when at the end of the one video he said like I'm back, I just wrote that off to like he's just, he's getting back in shape. And then all of a sudden I saw Joe Rogan mentioning how he's been talking about he wants to do like charity events and exhibition matches. Like that's pretty crazy. I think he's like 53.
Yeah, I think so. And I read Evander Holyfield's talking about coming back too, which
Yeah,
is
I don't know how true it is, but supposedly somewhere had said that like Tyson and Holyfield were thinking about having another matchup. I don't know how true that is. That could be speculation.
right. Um, I don't know. I mean, it seems dangerous, but who knows how they'll go about it? I mean, is it going to be like it was before? I don't know. I mean, they're much older now. They both look like they're still in really good shape. Um, I would love to see it, but yeah, that's just crazy, man.
Yeah, no, I think it's intense, and I don't know, like I mean, nowadays they have testosterone replacement and all that stuff to where like you see these older guys who do that,
Well,
achieving higher physical feats than obviously someone who hadn't. My personal feelings on that, like I don't know. I think if you have a medical reason to do it, fine. But I think some people, I feel like just you got to accept that you're going to get old.
right. I mean, like I think Roy Jones Jr. was one of the guys. I mean, I don't know. I want to say he's quit boxing like recently, and I mean, he's been boxing since he started in the '90s. Maybe I don't think he was in the '80s, but he started really early on, and I think he just quit boxing like maybe a couple of years ago or something. I mean, you talk about a guy he's a true lifer. I mean, he's been fighting for a long time, and I think anybody who's taken that many punches to the head and all that, I mean, even though he's dished out a lot of punches, it can't be good. But Tyson seems to be pretty sharp still, mentally. I haven't seen any really public appearances of Holyfield much, but some of these guys, I mean, maybe it's uh, I don't know if it's all on the individual or because like take Ali for example. Ali, he had some type of condition. I'm pretty sure it probably was from
Parkinson's.
Parkinson's, right? And I'm guessing that was from boxing. Might
Yeah,
have brought that on.
I would think there's got to be a relation between taking as many shots as he did.
Yes, right. And I mean, a guy like Tyson and Holyfield and some of these other guys, they still seem pretty sharp. So I mean, maybe they could do it. Maybe they could just get back in there, and it's not going to be like when they were younger, but it's definitely interesting, man.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that very much. Though I would think it. I mean, like it seems, and I don't know this for sure, but obviously with UFC, like there's a lot of groundwork. So I think you're in a little bit better of a position in terms of that. Like in terms of obviously, we've seen boxers who've just done it too long, and you can tell like they've taken too many hits. I would just assume like if you're going to be a fighter, like to me, you'd have to have a shelf life, especially if you're a boxer. Like I'd be like, all right, well, whether it's a duration of time or there's some kind of physical indication, but if you want to retain, good physical health and not literally have brain damage, there should be a cutoff in my mind.
Yeah, but it depends on what sport you're in, and it also depends on how that individual, I think, takes care of himself and what they're doing. I mean, um, some of these guys. I mean, I mean, just boxing specifically, Floyd Mayweather is so good at defense and not getting hit that I think his shelf life, that's why his shelf life was much longer. You know what I mean? I think he could still get in there and probably, I mean, he probably could still dominate. Who knows? But then you got other guys that, I mean, I haven't heard about this guy in a while, but like Ruslan Provodnikov, I think he was a Russian, and he would just get in there and he was an animal, but he had no defense really. I mean, he could take all the punches and keep going. They called him a Russian Rocky, and
Yeah.
he was insane. But I can't imagine that he's gonna gracefully age,
Yeah.
like a Mayweather or something like that.
Yeah. No. And I know, I can't remember who it was specifically, but Tulio had talked about there were probably more than one, but there was a specific UFC fighter he was talking about who this guy he doesn't when he doesn't do like striking sparring because his thing is he's like everyone has a certain number of shots you can take before it's going to start doing some damage. And he's like, he's like, I know I can fight. Like he does drills and everything like that, but he's like, I'd rather save my shots for the ring.
Is
And
it
I don't,
Tony Ferguson?
could be. I honestly can't remember.
I don't know. Yeah.
But and like I would assume it might be more than one. And I'm not saying that I'm not advocating or going against that ideology. I just thought that was interesting to hear.
It's a theory. Yeah, I mean, it's a different theory. I think because there's so much sparring involved in training, that's definitely a possibility that maybe by not sparring, it's difficult because you have to spar to gain that experience and face different people and build up to your fight. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, you could be damage yourself even further too. I mean, of course, people get injured in sparring. So I don't know. I mean, it's definitely it's a theory.
Yeah, I think
Fortunately, I'm not testing it out too much. So
no, and I think like I agree with you. Obviously, like you couldn't do that as a new fighter. Like you couldn't be coming up in your career and be like, nah, just not gonna spar.
no,
It would make sense to me like if you've been in fights, you're a seasoned fighter, so to speak. Then I could see like you could bypass the striking aspect of sparring, and if you just stuck to striking drills and things like that. That in my mind, at least, there's a higher likelihood of that not hurting your game, so to speak. But yeah, if you're a new guy and you're not used to everything that's going to go into having to react under pressure and be able to take the shots and sharpen your skill, then yeah, I don't think it's realistic.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Did you watch any of that UFC there was a pay-per-view?
I wanted to. The issue was, well, for one thing, on Saturday night, I was actually by my aunt's house, which is one of literally like 4 people I've seen during all this, and
Yes.
I'm very careful. But anyway, um, I was gonna watch it the next day because Tulio has, I can't remember what it's called, but it's
ESPN Plus.
Fight Pass, UFC Fight
Okay.
Pass is what he
Okay.
has. But the issue was, um, so I went on UFC Fight Pass, but I pulled it up, but they didn't have. I wanted to watch Tony Ferguson, like the last fight specifically. Unfortunately, it got ruined, and I knew that he lost because I didn't want to know. But my uncle Elmer texted me, and he's like, "Are you surprised that Ferguson lost?" I was like, "Well, I am now."
Yeah, you surprised me.
But UFC Fight Pass,
Tough as nails, dude. That guy's tough as
yeah.
nails.
But UFC Fight Pass didn't have it, and then I couldn't get a hold of Tulio. I was like, hey man, what's your password? And I figured it out. I guessed it because I have his password for some other things, but it wasn't on there that fight, and I couldn't even. I wanted to see too Michelle Waters. I wanted to see her fight. That wasn't on there. And then Tulio told me, he's like, oh no, it's you got to go under ESPN Plus because he'd ordered the pay-per-view, and like I would assume you got to have it for at least 24 hours. But by the time then he finally got to me to tell me he was on ESPN Plus. So I was trying to use his password, but there was like a slight variation. There was an underscore in there that's usually not there. So I did it a few times, and it was like, you've tried too many times, like get out of here. And I was like, mother.
Locked you out.
Yeah. So between
Well,
all of
there
that,
was
you get to see it.
yeah, it was a long fight card. I mean, there was the prelims were awesome, and then obviously pay-per-view was pretty good. But yeah, Ferguson took a beating, man. He took a beating, and I couldn't believe he kept going because he was getting cracked hard by this. But Matt Gazy. I don't really follow UFC that much, but I mean, I'm glad I watched that the other night.
Yeah, no, I
It
was
was
just like
good.
I know about it. Like TJ keeps me a lot more informed. Like he's the only reason I have the knowledge that I do. The whole reason too that I wanted to see that specifically, like I ended up, what I did was I went back and I looked on YouTube and I watched a couple of Tony Ferguson's fights because he incorporates Wing Chun into his training, which is what I do. So obviously that piqued my interest, and I was curious to see, if any of it would be obvious in his fighting, which I didn't see it in the matches that I saw. I know Joe Rogan has actually talked about like he kind of utilizes the trapping aspect where like he'll kind of catch their hands and pull them in sort of thing. And I mean, Wing Chun is definitely not designed for the ring, so I didn't expect to see a ton of it, but that was the main reason I was curious. Like the fights I saw were interesting, and like the dude's a good fighter, no doubt. But yeah, unfortunately, I missed the pay-per-view due to technological difficulties.
My buddy was telling me I think he was like a break dancer or something, and like he does these crazy spin moves in the ring, and also he was like punching the guy's shins. So he would like bend over really quickly, reach down and punch the guy in his shin. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing?
Was the guy
I'm like, what?
was the guy at least throwing a kick or like what?
I don't know. I mean, no. I mean, I think he would go for a kick after possibly, but it was just so crazy that this guy was literally like, think about punching somebody, go to the
Yeah.
body, go to the head or something. You gotta go far down to punch somebody in the shin.
Well, that's
And
what I
I
was
don't
gonna
know.
say. I mean, like that's why like
Usually they
if
kick each other in the shin.
I was gonna say like if somebody was throwing a kick and like you hit their shin because it was that high, because like there's actually in Filipino martial arts they talk a lot about limb destruction, and there's one move I wouldn't necessarily like. You'd have to train this before you'd really try it, especially. But it's easier for punches. Like for punches, they'll try to kind of throw their elbow out so that their fist hits your elbow, and essentially you're gonna break your knuckles.
Yeah.
But with kicks, I've seen some of the guys like if the kick's high enough, like they'll do kind of like a downward elbow into like the different nerve areas. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't try to like bend over and hit someone in the leg. Like that's ridiculous.
Well, you know what it made me think of, and I can't remember what movie this is from, but Will Ferrell, when he's like, he hit me in the wrist. Like, it's just like such an odd place to go punch it. Like people are just aiming for random body parts or
I just thought about I can't remember was it called Get Hard with Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart when he's training him to go to
yes.
prison.
Yes.
He took capoeira,
Yeah, yeah.
which is that's from that movie. Oh God,
Only the strong survive,
yes,
dude.
only the
That's a
strong.
great
Yeah,
fucking
yeah,
movie.
yeah. Oh my God, man.
It's awesome. Dude, the
No,
guys they're playing how about the guys are playing basketball and like they're playing in friggin' dress shoes. They're playing basketball dress shoes, the bad guys.
oh,
Remember
oh,
that?
oh.
The guy with the long hair?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I don't
They're playing in
remember.
their Scarpellis.
I was gonna say I don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched that movie, but I do remember that guy just having like didn't he have like those kind of like almost like the V-toed boots and stuff? No,
Something like that. I just thought that was funny too. These guys
I'm
are
sure it is.
literally
Like I said, it's been a long time because like I had first seen that like I was a little kid. Like TJ
me
had
too.
I think he rented it like on tape, and then it was on Netflix a few years ago, and that's when I had rewatched it. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen that. And it's funny to go back and watch a lot of that stuff. Like I still I enjoy them. Like Bloodsport. That movie I should watch that again. That was another movie where like me and TJ were super little or I was super little and I remembered nothing. And then I rewatched it a few years ago and there's definitely stuff you laugh at. Like there's a scene where like he's running away from people, Van Damme's character, and I don't even know why. But like, there's just this goofy music, and I'm like, "Are we in a Three Stooges sketch? Like, what's going on right now?"
Yeah, it's just that dated music, right?
Oh man,
um, dude, have you ever seen? I think I've told you about this, and I'm gonna put some of your followers on this right now. Gladiator, not Russell Crowe Gladiator.
mm
You never seen the movie Gladiator? It's about a fictional character. The boxer
oh, a fictional
is
character?
actually, yeah, he's a fictional character. He's a boxer. What?
Because most
Yeah.
movies are about fictional characters.
What if it was based on a true story?
I know you got me there with the boxing thing. But
Okay.
go on.
So anyway, he's fictional and he's from Bridgeport in the movie, which
Really?
is pretty cool. Yeah, and
Like
Cuba Gooding.
Bridgeport, Illinois, though?
Yes, our neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay, because I know there's a
So
Bridgeport, Connecticut. So that's why I was like,
right. No, no, it's in Chicago. It's a Chicago movie. Uh, Cuba Gooding Jr. is in it. Brian Dennehy is in it. It's from the '90s, and I mean, I love it. My nephew's dad's actually in a very briefly training in the background, which is pretty funny.
oh, that's cool.
So that was always cool. And but yeah, I love that movie, dude. It's a boxing movie. It's just just the fact that it's filmed in Chicago and all that too. You should check it out.
No, definitely. I tell you what, my favorite like movie like that, like kind of like a goofy martial arts movie, shall we say? It might be on Amazon Prime now. It was for a little bit, but I think it's still on YouTube. You can find it. It's called The Perfect Weapon, and it's Jeff Speakman, who's a big Kempo guy. Like he trained under Ed Parker, who brought like American Kempo to America. Technically, his version of Kempo is what they call American Kempo, but it was an early '90s movie, and TJ had rented it when we were young because he was doing Kempo at the time, and I've watched it. I've watched it a few times in recent years, and like yeah, like I said, like it's kind of a goofy martial arts movie, but as far as they go, like it's a pretty decent quality of story. And the funny thing is, like if you watch any Kempo, if you're familiar with it at all, like they do one of their things is they have a lot of strikes in succession, which a lot of martial arts will do that just because it's kind of a good idea. Like if you have to keep hitting whatever, but to try and incorporate that in the way they do in the movie, like he hits a guy like 10 times in one part. It's like he hits him and he chops him like 3 times and he's like, where's Ken? And it's just like, it sounds like a machine gun. it's it's really it is a cool movie and the fight scenes are cool, but like when you see stuff like that where it's like he would have fell by like the third shot. It's hysterical. Where is he? And he has like 3 barrages of hits. Oh man, no, I recommend it. It's entertaining because like I say, it is a good movie, but the parts that are funny are they are funny. Actually, the guy who played Shang Tsung in the original Mortal Kombat movies in that movie.
Oh damn!
Yeah, he got
Weren't they
old
supposed?
now, which
Really?
obviously because
Okay,
like he was in like you remember The Man in the High Castle, that show.
that's from Amazon.
Yeah, it's where the Japanese and the Germans
I
won
I
World
only
War II.
watched I only watched a couple episodes. I never finished it. Do you
Mm.
recommend finishing it?
Yeah, I want to go
You
back
like it?
because yeah, it was really good. I mean, I actually will probably have to rewatch it because I had watched it maybe a year ago, and I was going through really fast, but there were some points where I was doing other things and not paying as close of attention. But it's really good. I do recommend it. But the guy, one of the main like Japanese generals or whatever you want to call him, it's the guy who played Shang Tsung, and like it took me a couple episodes to put it together because I was like, this dude looks familiar because he's obviously like he's older now. He's not in as good a shape because that was 91 and now we're in 2020. But definitely interesting to see him like in a current role.
You went on a frenzy on IMDb, didn't you? You're like, I know this guy. Where's he at?
I
Where's he from?
I
I do
think
that.
I did put it together. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Shang Tsung, and then I just looked it up.
Okay, good.
I have me and my crazy mind. It's just
No, I it's like one of those things where it's like it doesn't mean anything really, but you're like you get obsessive over it, Try to remember like what movie was this person in, something like that. Very insignificant, but it's like seems like such an urgent thing. Like I gotta find this out.
yeah, no, it's but yeah, it was interesting to see him after all those years. This is on the same topic, but a little bit random. Like, and one thing I really enjoy about martial arts movies, especially like I always notice the more I learn, like the more stuff I'll see. Like, especially like obviously I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan. But every time
Couldn't
I'll
tell.
watch,
I couldn't tell.
you had no idea, right? Knowing me
I had
since
no
I was
idea.
11 years old.
This is new information right now.
But a lot of times, like his movies, especially, like I'll watch and like I'll just see things where I'm like, I didn't even notice that he did that. Like there was a really cool, and there's a few of these, but it was something called like Bruce Lee's missed moments, like just things that he'd throw into a fight that like you got to be real quick to see. And it's when he fights Chuck Norris, which is a hugely famous scene. But there's a part that like it's really fast, but like he throws, it's a feint, but he throws like a finger jab to Chuck's eyes in like the
Damn.
because Chuck Norris like goes for a punch and like Bruce Lee comes around and like does this, but it's so fast like you don't see it, and he takes down his arm and like you would absolutely miss that move. Um, but yeah, so I like going back and rewatching things because I tend to see more the more that I learn for one thing, and then it's interesting too. Like not all the time, like I'm not an expert, but there are certain times where I've watched certain movies where like if you don't know what style it is, like for example, I was watching Brandon Lee had a few movies, like obviously he's known for The Crow, Bruce Lee's son, but there was a movie that he was in, and or he was in several movies, and there was a compilation of his fight scenes, and I'd never really seen these. And I'd known from interviews with Brandon that he got very much into Muay Thai, but he also trained Jeet Kune Do, so like he knew a lot of different styles. And watching him, like I could see certain parts. I'm like, oh my god, dude, like that's Muay Thai right there. I can see like where he's utilizing that specific art, and it's cool stuff. It was funny. The one time I was talking to a friend, it was a girl, and she was, I'm talking about martial arts, and she's like, oh, like are there any movies you'd recommend? And obviously, I always say Ip Man, but I told her to
Oh,
watch.
you told me about it. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I told her to watch the Bruce Lee Chuck Norris scene. And so she watched it and she's like, is that supposed to be funny? I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, like it seems like really like just funny and like whatever. I'm like, maybe by today's standards, I'm like, that was like 1970. I'm like, that was revolutionary. Watch fight scenes from that time. How dare you disrespect him?
Don't take it personal, Matt. It's okay.
No, I wasn't like legitimately angry, but I was just like,
No, I know.
you got to know, like for the time, that was crazy, man. And it was,
Yeah.
no, it was interesting. I mean, I'm going on a big Bruce Lee tangent, but
That's okay.
on the one of the interviews, there was a guy who was a martial artist at that time, and I think he said they called him. It was like three punch or three kick Bruce, something like that. He's like, he would do 3 moves and that would be it. He's like, but Bruce was the only one who wanted to film things so they looked real. I mean, especially if you compare it to movies in Hong Kong at the time, those old school kung fu movies, like they move very slow. Like it's literally like, it's like, whoa, ha, ha, ha. And it's, but it was the 70s. Like it's entertaining to watch some of those, but I mean, what he was doing for that time is crazy. Or, I wish, if you searched Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz, Bruce Lee, yeah, dude, when Joey Diaz talked about that, it was hysterical because they bring up the footage of the Chuck Norris fight, and Joe Rogan is a jiu-jitsu guy. He's been in martial arts forever. He took Taekwondo as a kid, so like he's interested. He's watching, and he's pretty much just like kind of talking about what's going on. He's like, oh man, look at this dude. Like they're opening with high kicks, and they got this kind of all this skill, and he's explaining things very formally. And Joey Diaz is going, watch this, Joe Rogan. Watch this. This was 1970. This kick changed the motherfucking world, Joe Rogan. In the one part, Bruce Lee knocks Chuck Norris down. He lets him get back up. And Joe Rogan goes, oh, man, he's letting him get back up. He goes, he's a gentleman, Joe Rogan.
Joey Diaz is hilarious.
Oh my god, he was a nice guy too, because we met him briefly after the show, and he was a nice dude.
You have to think that if Bruce Lee never passed away, all them Chuck Norris jokes would be Bruce Lee jokes.
Yeah, there's only a few.
Bruce Lee whipped that motherfucking ass.
Yeah, like there's one that I saw where it was like Chuck Norris checks the closet for Bruce Lee at night.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you gotta pay homage.
Yeah, there's a few of them. There was one where one said, "Why are there so many Chuck Norris jokes but no Bruce Lee jokes? Because Bruce Lee's no joke."
Right, he is no joke.
That would be insane because he was born in 1940, so he would be like 80 years old. I would have been curious to see like where he took everything and how he further developed it, and I'd be really curious too to see how he carried it into his old age, because I feel like Wing Chun has a lot of stuff that like you can kind of incorporate to where it's a little bit more, you could be older and like you don't have to be the fastest and strongest person. Like you don't have to be a young person to utilize some of it. So I'd be interested to see, if he'd incorporate more of that. I'm sure he would have gotten into jiu-jitsu. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been necessary. I mean, would you say it's fair to say that as important Bruce Lee is, I think it would be Hoist Gracie? Do you think he's equally important to martial arts?
I think, I mean, the Gracie family.
Everybody is. Yeah.
The Gracie family in general is largely important because I mean, like if they didn't do what they did with jiu-jitsu, like fighting wouldn't be what it is today.
Right. It's evolved everything.
Yeah. No, it's definitely
big
huge.
time.
And like, and that was, and I don't know, I would assume I would assume Bruce is probably aware of them on some level because I mean they weren't as notable, but he was part of that community. I mean there are a few things where like Enter the Dragon, most famously in the first scene, he puts the guy into an armbar. He would do judo throws sometimes. Like he was incorporating some elements of it in there. But I mean, back in the 70s, you know, it was striking was the thing. It wasn't as grappling oriented as we are today.
That's what was awesome about Bruce Lee, and incorporated a lot of different things. He wasn't like, set on one set of principles, I guess, as far as fighting goes, whatever. But I mean,
Yeah.
you're more of a connoisseur on all that stuff than I am, but but
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I mean the whole like Jeet Kune Do, there's a core curriculum, so to speak, in that like generally speaking, like the way Bruce started kind of teaching it was a mixture of Wing Chun Kung Fu, boxing, and then fencing in terms of your footwork and the way you would, body mechanics, so to speak. But Bruce Lee talks about, and there's still people who argue about this to this day, um, whether Jeet Kune Do is a system or a philosophy. And I'd say there's a base system, but it is more of a philosophy in a lot of ways. His whole thing was to take something, borrow from any art and incorporate it into your own style and make your own style. Like, yeah, obviously they learn together and stuff, but he was big on, if this works for you, make it work for you. Like there was things that a lot of people don't know is Bruce Lee would utilize a lot of savate kicks. Savate's a French kickboxing martial art, and they wear shoes while they're doing it, so they will actually target vital areas and like use like the tip of the shoe. Like they'll go for the liver and stuff. Like I think it was called Fight Quest, which is probably still on YouTube. Similar to the Human Weapon, where two guys would just go to different countries and learn a martial art each episode, and then have some kind of exhibition match typically. And the one dude was an MMA fighter previously. The other guy was a professional football player. He had wrestled. Like they both had a pretty good background. So far from like, they weren't unfamiliar with fighting or violence. And they went to France, and the one guy on the show was training with the savate teacher. And this was terrible though. I'm like, that's not what a dickhead you are. He kicked him in the liver, and this monster of a guy fell down and was like screaming. That's when I learned like how vicious liver shots were. I was like, holy shit. Like Bas Rutten he always talks about like that's exactly what he was going for, was the liver. Like and it's a fight ender. Like you get hit in the liver pretty much, like you're not, I mean, I'm sure like if you didn't get really blasted, you could maybe, but like it's serious
Dude,
stuff.
I remember I was at your house probably a couple of years ago, and you were showing me the Bass Rutten videos of the self-defense videos.
They took it
They're
down. Those are
hilarious, dude.
hysterical.
What?
Yeah.
How would they take those down?
I
They're
think
great.
because they were actually like he sold them, like you can buy them. So I'm sure like
Okay.
copyright wise is probably why.
He's like, whatever's available to you, use it like a bar stool. You just bang, bang. The way he talks is all crazy.
Yeah, no, he had the one guy bent over, and he's like, so I got him, and looky here, and he's pointing to the edge of the booth, like the wooden piece that's sticking out. Because so you bang his head, don't you do this.
Yeah, dude, those videos were awesome.
Yeah, he did a series which I'm surprised it wasn't more popular. It was on Fuse. It was called Punk Payback, and each show, Bas Rutten would be going over some kind of footage they had of someone who got attacked, whether it was just physically or with a weapon or whatever. And he'd say like, well, here's what you could do. But it was the same kind of thing. Like he was Boss, so he'd like utilize those funny sounds and stuff. And it was interesting stuff. Like it was like a fight breakdown, but it didn't get a
He
whole
got.
lot of notoriety.
It sounds like. I think you told me about that too. Did he go on Rogan? I'm sure he's been on Rogan before, right?
Oh
Has he been
yeah,
on Rogan?
yeah.
I gotta check his
I'm
out.
sure. I'm sure more than once. I've seen clips of them, but he's had to have been on Joe Rogan more than once. Or he was
I,
recently, and I saw on Instagram there was a clip. Have you seen Bas Rutten has it's called the O2 trainer, one of those things where like it will limit how much oxygen you're getting while you're working out.
no,
No, so
no. I might
I
need one of
mean,
those.
they have things like that. Obviously, like there's masks that can you can wear to reduce how much oxygen you're
Right.
getting. but the O2 trainer, like it has different little it almost looks like a straw tip in a way. But so like you start on like you're getting more, and then as you go on, you have less and less. And the reason that Bas Rutten talks about why he created it, when he was a kid, he had asthma pretty bad. And he said that he would notice that if he had a really bad attack, once it was gone, like he would kill it, like in his training. And he realized it's because he was restricted on how much oxygen he was getting, and now that he could get more, it was like nothing. So that was part of the reason why he developed the O2 trainer.
I gotta look into that for sure. This is unrelated, but I kind of want to ask you about this. I don't know if you've watched it at all. Have you watched The Last Dance yet? About the Bulls, Jordan?
No.
I knew you were gonna say no.
Are you surprised?
Why not? Why not?
No, I mean, like that would be
you should
something
watch
I
it,
would.
man. You should totally watch it. I mean, it's super inspirational. I mean, Jordan, you watch it and you're like, holy shit, man, this guy was next. I mean, everybody knows he was next level and all that, but it just reaffirms everything I've always thought, that he's just the greatest basketball player of all time, possibly one of the greatest athletes of all time. I mean, dude, his mindset, everything was insane. And I mean, it just takes you through these roller coasters watching it. And the last 2 episodes are this Sunday, so there's 10 episodes. Going to be a total of 10 episodes. I highly recommend to watch it, man. It's awesome.
What's it on? Is it on ESPN or?
It's been on ESPN. Yeah. So.
Okay. I'm sure
yeah.
it's on demand. Then it's got to be.
Yeah, it's on demand. It's
Yeah.
on demand on my thing. There's 8 episodes out there, an hour each. It's about the Bulls as a whole, but Jordan's obviously the focal point. But they talk about Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Phil Jackson, and anybody that's unfamiliar with basketball or sports at that time, I think it would be interesting for them. But just everybody knows who Michael Jordan is, and it takes you through some of the moments, big moments, not just about that last season, but leading up to that last season. His early retirement, going to baseball, all kinds of stuff, man. His father passing away, all kinds of stuff. So I mean, it's really, really, really intense. I liked it a lot. I like it a lot so far.
No, I mean, I would definitely give that a shot. I mean, like obviously, I'm not into sports in terms of stuff like that. Like, I love martial arts and I can talk about boxing and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, but no, I'd be interested. I mean, especially being that we live in Chicago and we're from here. I remember being a little kid and, I especially didn't follow sports then, but I remember, things happening and just how big the Bulls were. And like you said, like when his father died and everything, like that was, yeah, man, that was crazy stuff. And God, we were
Yeah.
young. I mean, that was.
I'm too young to remember. We're too young to remember the first 3 that they won. The last 3 that they won, I remember a little bit. I especially remember that last series when Jordan hit that game-winning shot against the Jazz. But I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard. He was playing since like '84, I think.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, and so it talks about all that. Talks about when he got drafted. Um, it's very interesting, man. I don't want to be like that type of person that is like pushing something on you, but I
But
just
you're,
I
you're not
think
you're not pushing it.
yeah,
You're expressing that it's good and like you're suggesting that I watch this. All you'd be like, you gotta do this.
yeah. No, I don't like to be like that, because people have done that to me before, and that makes me not want to watch something, like
Yeah, I
Game of
know. Well,
Thrones.
it's yeah,
It's
yeah,
probably a
no,
great show, but
yeah. I like I said, to me, the Game of Thrones thing is I know there's a lot of torture and like that upsets me, so I'm like, I can't do it. But
I think
yeah,
I'll watch it eventually. But at the time, it was just everybody was like, "You haven't watched it?" They want to crucify you. Just leave me alone, man.
oh,
Not doing it.
I'll tell you, it's actually really good, and I'd been meaning to check it out forever, and I finally watched it. I just finished it last night. As Hunters on Amazon it's got Al Pacino. They're Holocaust survivors, and they're going after the Nazis in like the 70s.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I have heard about it. I've heard good things too, but I haven't given it a shot.
It's really good. I can say this, and like me, I'm definitely not squeamish about violence, but the violence is pretty intense. Like it's not glorified. It's not, like, oh, this is a movie and that's cool. Like when someone gets killed, you're like, oh man, like it's It's heavy
Yeah.
stuff, but it's good. It's good writing, good acting. Obviously, Pacino's known for his acting, but they're all really good.
Pacino.
It's funny that he's playing a Jewish guy, because like when I heard that, I was like, is he gonna be Jewish? And like he is. He plays it well,
Okay.
but I'm like, really?
He could play everything. Like played a Cuban guy well. I mean,
Yeah.
Scarface.
But yeah, no, and but no, I'd highly recommend it, and especially the season finale, because I'm assuming they'll likely do more. But it's
There's only one so far, right? One season.
yeah, it just came out, I think, in February. But yeah, man, it's really, really good. Like if you're looking for something to watch, like that's definitely something to check out.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot, like just like the books in my house. I have a lot of shit that I want to watch, but it depends. Sometimes you're not sure which route to go. I mean, if you're in a certain mood, if you're in a mood for action or whatever, that kind of makes your mind up for you, I guess. But I'll definitely put that down on the list.
Yeah, no, I'm there's there are things I'd be interested in, but a lot of times I don't know. I'm bad at sitting down and watching things. I tend to like, you've known me for a long time. I can talk a lot, so I prefer to do something like that, especially if I'm hanging out with people. Someone's like, let's watch a movie. I'm like, I'd rather talk, and I don't want to talk over the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like obviously the Tiger King, because everybody was like, TJ was the one to really drive it home. He's like, no, 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 you got to watch this. This is insane. And still, one of my favorite parts from that is when the tiger grabs Joe Exotic, like he's got like his shoe and he's dragging him. Especially because I work with dogs, so I've had situations where like you have to be a little more firm. But this is a tiger that can just murder you in like a second. He's like, "What are you doing, you bitch?" And he takes out a gun and shoots it. And I was laughing because it's crazy, but also like I've had certain experiences like with uh there's been a pit bull, there's been a Rottweiler, to where like I've had to be firm with them, and in retrospect I'm like, I didn't think enough about the fact that like that animal could really hurt me. Not that I was doing anything dangerous per se, in terms of like I'm obviously not being aggressive, but even like telling them no, I'm not thinking about the fact. Sometimes I'm like, you got to think about the fact a little more. Like, that's a pit bull that can, and
Yeah.
this is this guy's messing with a tiger. So yeah, interesting
Yeah.
stuff.
Even the fact that people go there to meet the tigers or take pictures with them, I'm just like, what's the point? There's no allure there for me to want to get next to this. I don't care how many likes I get on a goddamn Instagram photo with a tiger. Like, I don't know. I'm just not.
No, I agree, and I mean like it makes a little bit more sense like when it's like like baby tigers obviously, but still like I see a lot of that
Even
stuff.
the baby tigers. I don't want to be by the baby tigers.
Oh no, no,
Don't.
I think it's a much healthier response, especially like, have you seen like I've seen a lot of pictures being on like dating sites where there's pictures like girls will have like with these exotic dangerous animals. I'm like, what are you doing? Like that thing can murder you.
What
Like,
dating sites are you on, man?
you've never seen that? I swear to God. Like
Yeah, I don't know.
I've seen it on Match before. Like I've seen pictures with they'll be with a tiger. I saw I'm on Hinge currently, and I saw one where a girl, they're with an elephant. And I mean, like elephants are a little less known for their aggression, but I'm still like, that, what are you doing? And I've especially like I said, being Match, I think was where I saw it mostly.
Mm.
But I've seen a few, and I don't, or people in general, where I'm just like, you realize it's a wild animal. Like me and Tom, this was years ago when it was there was that video on Oprah where this family, like they had raised a baby lion cub, and then they went back in the wild and they found it, and they're playing all this nice music, and the lion's like running towards them. Me and Tom were both crying laughing, because I was like, I'm imagining this thing just like mauling these people because it's a full grown lion now. You shouldn't have been playing with it when it was a baby. And that's good, and I'm glad, and like, yeah, that's heartwarming, like, oh, like it must remember you or something.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't think you should be doing this.
We reintroduced it to the wild. And It's gonna remember us. It'll never forget us.
Yeah, no, they were standing there like with these big smiles. I'm like, what if this thing just mauls them right now? Like,
Yeah.
we knew that wasn't going to happen because it wouldn't be on TV. But
Right.
we were both.
How crazy would it be if it was?
Oh yeah, that'd be pretty bad.
And that's why you don't do this. Like that's why you don't.
That's how the skit ends with Oprah. This is why you need to be aware.
Don't
Claw your
raise
face off.
don't raise tigers or lions in your fucking house. They're not house pets.
No, seriously. Like, I mean, it's it's. I really love dogs and I love animals in general, but when it's a wild animal like that, man, like you can't just ignore that fact. Like way back in the day with oh god, Siegfried and Roy, when the tiger attacked one of them. And I remember Chris Rock saying, like, people said the tiger went crazy. He goes, no, that tiger went tiger.
Yeah. The tiger one. Yeah, it's good. Holy shit. Yeah, it's not its natural habitat, man. You know. So, I know I'm always kind of squeamish around animals and stuff, but I remember when I was young in Arizona, I was with my cousin, and she took me to a friend's house, and her friend had a bag on the ground, and there was a goddamn yellow python in the bag, like Jake
boy.
the Snake shit, right? And he's like, "Think that's bad? Don't go in that room over there. I got like I don't know what an anaconda or some shit. I don't know what the hell was in there, but he was like, there's an even bigger snake in there. I'm like, why do you have a huge snake in your house? Not one, but two. You have two snakes? I mean, maybe he was lying about the second snake. I never seen it, but I wasn't trying to go there and see for myself. But the snake in the bag, I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here. I can't be in here. But some people just, everybody's different. I'm not comfortable like that around animals, and some people are, like a la Joe Exotic. So
Yeah, no, I agree though. I mean, it's something that big. Even like I definitely I wouldn't buy a snake for myself, and not that big. That big is obviously super excessive. The only like I had an experience. I was way younger. One of Tulio's friends, this guy Joe, he like bred like reptiles. He had a bunch of snakes. I think he might have had some turtles. And I held a baby snake there, and I was only like 8 or 9. But a big part of that was like, TJ was like super into this, and his friend Joe was. So being the little brother, I'm like, oh yeah, man, we're totally gonna do stuff like this. It wasn't a dangerous situation because it was small, but I don't know. I had that influence to really kind of put that in my mind, like, oh, this is cool. I did more recently. It's my second cousin, my dad's first cousin. He had a snake. He was staying with my dad for a little while. Not huge, but like average size, you want to say. And he's like, "Oh, you want to hold it? You want to hold it?" And like, I wasn't like terrified or nothing, but I was like, I don't know. And he just kind of like put it on my arm. I was like, okay, guess I'll just have to remain calm and have the snake on me. It was all right. It didn't really bug me, but it's definitely like, yeah, like a huge snake, or like definitely like if somebody had a tarantula, I wouldn't go in your house. I'd be like, nope, that's all right.
yeah,
Like that's a different
I don't do
level.
I don't do tarantulas either.
Yeah, I mean it's a different level in some ways, but yeah, no, I don't know that I'd even want to go in the house. I'd be like, nah, I'm just gonna sit this one out. You do
It's a good idea.
you do you.
For sure, man.
Well, now that we've gotten way off topic, and if anyone's made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. As do both of us. This was supposed to be about quarantine habits and routines. We ventured off into martial arts, Bruce
You
Lee,
said it
the
was
snakes,
Go ahead.
the bulls. Go on.
You said it was a podcast style. We're running off. We're running off at the mouth there, so it's good.
No, that's true. I mean,
I enjoyed it. I
no,
enjoyed it a lot.
I had a great time. I would really, I hope that people enjoy this. I don't know. I'll be curious to see, especially because, at least as of now, all these little podcast style ones, yours and mine, the one that we first did together, is the highest rated. Not that I have huge
Hey.
ratings, but
Ooh.
out of mine, it's the highest. It's we got I think 64, and then me and Tulio's first one we had 50. That's the one that's second in line, and everything else is just kind of dwindles down.
When you have, yeah, I mean, you bring a different perspective or a different point of view on whatever. I mean, it's gonna attract people. You got to get. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who who else you got planned to come on here, but I mean, you know, I like coming on here. Tulio's obviously the man. So we're gonna keep on bringing the hits.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're hits, but yeah, I mean,
No, why
I
not?
was just trying to sound cool. So
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. If you made it this far in the video, put Out of the Shadows and Mike. Just say that in the comments and I'll know. No one comments on my videos anyway, so we probably won't see nothing.
can I
But
comment on the video?
you can.
Okay. All right.
If you
Out of
say
the
it,
Shadows and Mike.
yeah, definitely put that in there because we didn't know if you were here the whole time.
Yeah, right. I don't even know if I'm here.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Be well.